After my husband inherited his family's estate, he changed the deed to exclude my name. When I asked why, he said, "You're not blood. You're just passing through." I smiled. I had recorded that conversation. And what he didn't know was that the property tax hadn't been paid in 6 years. I bought it at auction under a different name. At his birthday party, I handed him the transfer notice. He laughed until he read who signed it. I met Eric in 2010 at a bar in downtown Tampa. I was bartending the Friday night shift, and he came in wearing this pressed white shirt, no tie, slick back hair, and that "I'm better than this place" attitude. He ordered a bourbon neat and didn't even look at me when he gave me his card. But when he came back the next week and I didn't remember him, it caught his attention. That was his game. He needed to be seen, admired. I guess not being remembered made him curious. He told me he'd just moved back from New York. Said he was in finance but got sick of the rat race. Wanted to reclaim his roots. I didn't really care. He was polite, tipped well, and I had bills to pay. But over time, he kept showing up, always at my bar, always asking little things about me. He found out I was also working days with a real estate broker and trying to help my brother through school. He liked that I was a hustler, as he put it. We started dating a few months later. I'll admit, at first, it felt good. He made me feel like all the grinding I'd done meant something, like I was leveling up in life. He'd take me out on his boat, talk about long-term plans. And when I finally met his parents in Sarasota, I thought, okay, this is real. They were cold, especially his mother, but I brushed it off. I wasn't raised with money. I didn't expect them to roll out a red carpet. We got married in 2012. No prenup, which I now realize was more about control than love. His dad still owned the estate back then. A huge old Spanish-style home just outside Siesta Key. It looked like something out of a movie. Clay tile roof, arched doorways, a fountain in the courtyard. But the inside was falling apart. Mold, rot, broken fixtures. Eric said he wanted us to restore it, make it our dream home. I bought into that dream completely. I poured years into that house. I managed contractors, handled inspections, fought the city over ridiculous permit issues. I paid out of pocket when things ran over budget. And they always did. Eric said the house would be ours one day, that it would be our legacy. So I pushed aside doubts, kept working, kept believing. Meanwhile, he started a property management company. I quit my job to help him run it. I didn't take a salary. Everything was under his name. He said it would be cleaner for taxes. I trusted him. Big mistake. When his father died in 2019, I thought, finally, we'll own the house outright. I asked him point blank, "Are we putting both our names on the deed?" He smiled. That fake, closed-lipped smile he used when he was hiding something. "Let me handle the legal stuff first," he said. "It's complicated with probate." Weeks went by. Then months. I asked again. He got cold. Said I was pressuring him, making him feel controlled. Then one night, I walked into his home office and saw the folder wide open on his desk. The new deed. Only his name on it. I felt something inside me go numb. When I asked him about it that night, I wasn't even angry. I just wanted to understand. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, like he was rehearsing a line. "You're not blood," he said. "You're just passing through. This house doesn't belong to you. Just passing through." That sentence broke something in me. What he didn't know was that during one of the years when we were still fixing the house, the property tax bills had started piling up. He said he'd handle it, but months passed and nothing was paid. So I did it. I created a shell LLC in a different name, my mother's maiden name, and paid the taxes myself. Quietly. I kept doing it for years. 6 years of unpaid back taxes triggered a lien, which led to the property being eligible for auction. I knew the system. I used to work in real estate. I knew how to bide my time. When the notice came, I acted. I placed the bid through my LLC. No one else was watching the auction. The house was considered a mess, not worth the risk. But I knew its value. I knew its history. And I won. Legally. Quietly. And then I waited. For his 45th birthday, I threw him a party at the estate. His smug friends, his snotty cousins, his drunk mother, they were all there. Everyone he tried so hard to impress. After the cake, I stood up and handed him an envelope. People laughed, clapped, thought it was cute. He opened it. At first he smiled. Then he read further. And then again. His face changed. It was like watching someone realize they've been standing on ice that just cracked. He looked up at me, dead silent. "What is this?" he asked. I said, "The house isn't yours anymore." He laughed. "Bullshit." Then I pointed to the signature line. It had my LLC's managing member listed, under my mother's maiden name. He read it. And then again. He went pale. He looked around like someone had just pulled the rug out from under him in front of his kingdom. People started whispering. His mother asked, "What's going on?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. I didn't stick around. I walked out, got in my car, and drove to the hotel I'd booked weeks ago, because I knew exactly how this night would end. And that was just the beginning. I checked into the hotel around 9:30 that night. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, still holding my clutch, watching the room clock tick toward midnight. My phone didn't stop buzzing for over an hour. First it was calls, then texts. Eric, his mother, even a couple of his friends, people who never gave a damn about me unless it involved planning a dinner or wiping up one of Eric's messes. I didn't answer a single one. The next morning, I woke up to a knock at the hotel door. I didn't move. A few seconds later, my phone lit up again. It was Eric. "You think this is a game?" his message read. "Let's talk before you make this worse." I blocked his number. By noon, he sent me an email from his company's domain. Cold. Legal. Said he was initiating a claim to dispute the auction, claiming I'd committed fraud by deception and intentional interference. I read it twice and laughed. The man had no idea I'd documented everything: emails, tax records, payment receipts, even audio of him admitting he hadn't paid the taxes for years. And he definitely didn't know I'd consulted with a lawyer 2 years before. A good one. Quiet. Sharp. He helped me set everything up so there'd be no legal loopholes for Eric to crawl through when this day came. Still, Eric wasn't stupid, just arrogant. He hired a local firm and filed an emergency motion to stop the transfer. He claimed he'd been unaware of the auction. Claimed the house had sentimental family value. Even said I'd manipulated the tax process while acting as his wife. But the judge didn't bite. The lien was public record. The notices were sent. The county followed the process. He had 6 years to act. And I had receipts for every payment made. I showed up to the first hearing in a dark blue suit. Hair pulled back.
No muck-up. Calm.
He came with his lawyer, trying to look composed, but his hands kept fidgeting. He didn't look at me once. His lawyer pushed hard. Said I'd undermined the marital trust. That I'd waited to strike. The judge looked right at him and asked, "So you're saying your client failed to notice 6 years of unpaid taxes on a property he claims is part of his legacy?" Silence. They tried to drag it out, delay after delay. Meanwhile, I had full control of the property. I changed the locks, installed security cameras. I hired a crew to begin repairs again, my crew, not his. I even contacted some of the tenants from his property management business and made them a quiet offer to shift to my new company. 5 of them left him within a month. Eric spiraled. He started showing up at the estate, banging on the gate, yelling through the intercom, leaving notes taped to the door. I never confronted him. I let the cameras do the work. My attorney filed for a restraining order after the second incident. It was granted. Then, something happened I didn't expect.
His mother called me.
"You've made your point," she said. "But we don't throw blood out of the family. He's your husband." I said, "No, he's not. Not anymore." And that was the next step. I filed for divorce.
He fought it.
Tried to drag out the discovery process, but I had documentation of every dime I put into the house, the business, the taxes. I even found an old email where he admitted in writing that the estate was falling apart until she took over. That went straight into the case file. It became clear he wasn't just losing a house. He was losing control. He started drinking more. I heard through a mutual friend he got pulled over for a DUI a few months after the party. The court dates kept stacking up. Legal fees drained him. And I knew, deep down, he was waiting for me to crack, to give in, to show weakness. But I never gave him that. Instead, I stayed quiet, calculated. 3 months after the divorce papers were served, something strange happened. I got a letter from the IRS. At first, I thought it was a routine update, maybe tied to the LLC or the tax auction. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. It said I was being audited, specifically related to unreported income from real estate activity connected to Eric's old property management company. It didn't make sense. I never took income from that company. I worked for it, yes, but there was no paycheck, no W-2. Everything was in his name. So I called my lawyer and we started digging. What we found made my blood run cold. Eric had filed joint returns in our name, without telling me, for 3 of the past 5 years. He claimed business losses tied to me as a partner, even though I was never legally one. Worse, he reported the property tax payments I'd made through my LLC as deductions on his own returns. Fraudulent deductions. And now, the IRS wanted answers. I had 2 choices: play defense and try to clean up the mess quietly, or go on the offensive. I chose offense. We contacted the IRS with a full disclosure package. I submitted the LLC's financials, bank statements, and proof that Eric had filed false joint returns. We even included a notarized letter from his former bookkeeper, who, after a little legal pressure, admitted Eric had told her to loop everything under the wife so we don't raise red flags. It wasn't just a tax issue anymore. It was fraud. At the same time, my lawyer found something else buried in the county archives. Eric had tried to use the estate as collateral for a private loan shortly after he inherited it, but the paperwork fell through when the title company flagged unpaid taxes. He tried to refinance a property he didn't even legally own anymore. That alone carried serious consequences if he tried it again under false pretenses. Then came the real kicker. The property wasn't just his family home. It was in a trust, something he never told me. And when his father died, Eric hadn't inherited the property outright. He was just named successor trustee, which meant the trust still technically owned the house when he changed the deed. Which meant, the moment he excluded me, he violated the trust's terms. Because guess what? The trust had a clause that said any spouse actively living in the property for more than 5 years was entitled to co-beneficiary rights unless divorced. He had cut me out illegally. On paper, I should have been a partial beneficiary even without being on the deed. And now that I'd bought it at auction, that move closed the loop. I hadn't just taken the house. I'd cleaned up the mess he made and removed the trust's liability. His own attorney admitted in court documents that they could not prove the transfer to Ms. Garcia was fraudulent in nature. I'd outmaneuvered him in every way. Still, Eric kept pushing. He started telling anyone who'd listen that I'd tricked him, that I plotted this for years. He posted online, even sent letters to local newspapers. One of them published a puff piece that painted him as a man betrayed by the woman he trusted. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. But behind the scenes, I started gathering more. Emails from old friends he'd borrowed money from and never paid back. Recordings from business calls where he used my name without my consent. And one more thing, something I hadn't touched yet, but was sitting on like a loaded gun. Evidence of an affair. Eric had been sleeping with a woman from the zoning department. I'd suspected it for years, but never had proof. After the party, she quit her job and moved to Fort Lauderdale. But a PI I hired, quietly, surgically, found the paper trail. Hotel receipts, text logs, even emails where she pulled permits faster for him than other applicants. He hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He'd manipulated the system using another woman and used me to cover the cost. The walls were closing in on him, and I was about to bring them down. By the time the PI finished gathering evidence of the affair, I was beyond anger. I felt cold.
Clear.
Like all the emotions had burned out, and all that was left was purpose. I handed the file to my lawyer. He flipped through it quietly. When he got to the part about the fast-track permits, he looked up and said, "This could be criminal." We filed a formal complaint with the city. Not just about the affair, but about the abuse of power, the permit manipulation, and the zoning favors. Within a week, they opened an internal investigation. Within a month, they turned it over to the state. Eric's ex-mistress got a subpoena. And suddenly, Eric had bigger problems than just me. He tried to fight back, again. He tried to sue for defamation. Said I was slandering him. But my lawyer didn't even flinch. We had emails,
Dates.
records. Every time he moved, we were 3 steps ahead. But here's where the final blow landed. I got a call from one of the men he'd borrowed money from, another local investor. Said Eric still owed him $60,000 from a joint project gone bad. I asked him to meet for coffee. He came with 2 others, same story. All told, Eric had racked up over $200,000 in quiet debts. I showed them the financial records I had. Offered to help them file a joint civil suit. They agreed. We filed together. The case forced Eric to open his books. Turned out he'd been funneling money from the property management business to cover personal expenses, private flights, jewelry, and 3 different cars. The business was insolvent. And the IRS case was still hanging over him. His accounts got frozen. He had to sell 2 of his remaining properties just to stay afloat. And then, after almost a year of dragging his feet, he finally walked into the courtroom for our divorce hearing looking like a ghost of himself.
Pale. Gaunt.
His hands shook when he picked up his water glass. I didn't say a word. I let the evidence speak. When the judge issued the final ruling, it was short and cold. I got full ownership of the estate, retroactive spousal equity for the years I worked unpaid, and a portion of his remaining liquid assets as restitution for the fraud. He walked out without looking at me. 3 months later, he filed for bankruptcy. I never saw him again. I finished renovating the estate on my own terms, took down the old family crest from over the doorway, and replaced it with clean white tile. I rented out the guest house to a young couple starting their first business. I hosted a few community events. I kept the place alive. Not as a legacy, but as proof. Proof that I wasn't just passing through. I still have that recording. From the night he told me I didn't belong. Sometimes late at night I play it once, just to remind myself how far I've come, how far I had to go to get here. He thought he could erase me from my own life. He thought wrong.